All right, Egbert here. This is with absolutely no preparation. I only just now figured out how to do this with my iPad. So let's go. This is recommendations for the Kino Lorber March Madness sale, their first big sale of 2021. So I'm just gonna show a capture of their website, and we'll take a look at titles that I think are notable. Not all of these I have, but some of them I do. I can just offer my opinions. Which ones I've already seen, movies I've seen, ones I'm planning to get. So we'll see how long this runs. So first of all, the silent 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea from 1916 is one of the many 4K restorations that Universal has done for their silent films. And that's a really neat prospect because a lot of these have been in the public domain for a long time. This particular film is not some hidden masterpiece, but it does have some neat underwater footage. It also has a really nice restoration, really nice score. So don't expect anything the same caliber as the Disney version from the 50s, but it's still worthwhile, especially if you're into silent film. Likewise, they also have a silent John Ford film in the mix, Three Bad Men. Now, this has unfortunately not received the same sort of restoration, at least for this Blu-ray, although, as far as I know, there is a 4K restoration, but it was created after the release of this Blu-ray, and now that Fox is owned by Disney, who knows when that's ever going to be seen? I'm sure they'll have a Ford at Fox special on Disney Plus in the near future. So this is still a fun movie. I don't think it's quite the same caliber as the Iron Horse, or even a lot of John Ford's later sound films, but it's a Ford Western. George O'Brien's good in it, pretty worth seeing. They also have Hal Ashby's last film, 8 Million Ways to Die. I haven't seen it, but I have been on a little bit of an Ashby kick lately. I did pick up the Harold and Maude Criterion as it was going out of print. Paid a little bit more than I usually would, but Ashby's always worth it. In fact, Kino does have a few other Ashby films out, and we'll see if those are on sale. And this is one film that I haven't seen, but I'm interested in, 99 River Street, if only because of a reference in the film Fade to Black, which Vinegar Syndrome just released, I think the end of last year. Pretty interesting film if you haven't seen that. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit more, and if I'm skipping over anything that looks interesting, sorry, I'm just going over what looks interesting. I will say, even though there is the Anns and the Aardvark on there, I do actually recommend getting the box sets of the complete DePatie Freeling cartoons. They actually released a box set with the complete Pink Panther cartoons, and then another one with the complete, or across two box sets, the complete, all the other ones, the Inspector, Ants and the Aardvark, Roland Ratfink, really worth seeing. I mean, they're nice. They're really nice remasters, and it's kind of funny that we have the complete, basically DePatie Freeling Enterprises cartoon canon. All of that's on Blu-ray in HD, and I think we have what, one disc of Disney. Warner Brothers kind of crapped out after what, four or five sets. So Arabian Nights is an interesting film because it's actually the very first three-strip Technicolor film that, or feature, that Universal made. It's clearly meant to be kind of a, I wouldn't say knockoff, but something in the tradition of The Thief of Baghdad, which was produced in 1940. And this doesn't really have the same kind of stature, but it does look pretty, and I think it's overall fun. Let's look at the next page. So let's see, we got a Billy Wilder film, Avanti. I haven't seen it yet. I've been pretty happy with most of the Wilder I've seen. I didn't really care for his Sherlock Holmes, but it was okay. This Barbara Stanwyck collection I actually got in one of the previous sales, and I haven't watched The Bride Wore Boots yet, but Interns Can't Take Money is a really good film. In fact, I think it was directed by Alfred Santel. Don't really, but it was actually the first of the Dr. Kildare films, and it has Barbara Stanwyck and Joel McCrea. Overall, a really entertaining film. The Great Man's Lady is also fairly entertaining. That also has Joel McCrea, and the film is. I think it's really interesting the way that it uses flashbacks, and Barbara Stanwyck is great as usual. And there's bookends, or there's not really bookends, but there's scenes that that fast forward to where she's 100 years old, and her performance in those scenes is really impressive. Makeup effects. And Battleship Potemkin, of course, is one of the all-time essentials. And apparently, this restoration was done at 4K. They didn't do complete dust busting, but it is the best US copy available. Of course, it's an essential film. I would highly recommend getting it. Although the UK edition, which I don't know if it's region locked or not, apparently has an extra film or two on it. I don't know enough about, but this is still absolutely worth getting. And you see we have some Mario Bava here. Haven't seen that. The Bed Sitting Room is a fun little film. It's the last film of the 60s by Richard Lester from a Spike Milligan play, I believe. And it's delightfully absurd, but I do like how Kino Lorber has given a lot of attention to Richard Lester, which I think out of his films, I know they've released A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, The Knack and How to Get It, this, How I Won the War, Cuba, Juggernaut, which is a great thriller if you haven't seen it, Finders Keepers, which is not so good, and Return to the Musketeers, which I think is also in the sale. But Richard Lester is definitely a director worth seeing. In fact, I hope Warner Archive eventually releases his film Petulia, which I think is one of the only two regular films of the 60s that aren't on Blu-ray yet. If you are a Criterion collector, they did release their own edition. Kino did release Billy Liar. It's uh, it's not from a full 4K master like some of the other Studio Canal titles that they got, but it's still a good film. It has Tom Courtenay in it, Julie Christie. I thought it was a delightful film, and the master's good. Has a good bit of extras. One disc I would definitely avoid though is The Birth of a Nation. Not for the obvious, but this edition is not quite. There's a much better edition from Twilight Time in the US, which I don't know if it's still in print or not. Probably isn't. But there's also a British Film Institute edition. But that is a 2K restoration from much better film elements. Has way more supplements on the background of the film because if there's ever a film that needed absolutely needed historical context, this is one. So I would definitely pass on this one. The Birthday Party is actually in my cart of titles that I'm definitely going to pick up. This is William Friedkin's adaptation of the Harold Pinter play, and I've wanted to see this. Really looks interesting. Let's see. There's two versions of Black Sabbath on here. One is the Italian version, and the other one is the American cut. I don't know why they're separate discs, and I think the UK edition from Arrow has both on the same disc, but still at $9.99 for each cut. It's comparable to what it would cost to import that, so probably worth it. There's Bluebeard's eighth wife. Oh, eight wife? Okay, I think they misspelled that. But that is a delightful Ernst Lubitsch comedy with Gary Cooper and Claudette Colbert. The I thought it was really funny. It's not a full restoration, but it does look very nice. I would definitely pick it up. And another Criterion rescue is Bob Le Flambeur, which I Again, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of some of this stuff, so just bear with me. This is from a full 4K restoration. Looks fantastic. It's packed with extras. I think commentary, some interviews, stuff like that. So Criterion never got around to upgrading this from DVD to Blu-ray, and I think the only Melvilles they did get to Blu-ray were Army of Shadows, Les Cercle Rouge, and Leon Moore and Priest. And Army of Shadows has since been reissued. Les Cercle Rouge is probably coming out soon because there's a new 4K master of that. I haven't seen this, but I'm really interested in Bombshell, the Hedy Lamarr story. Uh, it's not every day that you have somebody who's an actress who's also an inventor. So that sounds really interesting. I've heard some good things about that. There's also Boomerang, which is a noir by Elia Kazan. That looks interesting. Brick by Ryan Johnson. This is his first film. And initially, this is just going to use whatever master Universal gave Kino, but they actually did a full 4K remaster with Johnson supervising the new 4K, and it looks and sounds terrific. Has a commentary, deleted scenes, stuff like that. Overall, very worthwhile. I thought it was an excellent film. And if you're into Lindsay Anderson, which I've only seen If, which is out by Criterion, and Oh Lucky Man, which is with Warner Brothers but doesn't have a Blu-ray yet. That's definitely on my list. But this is the third film in a trilogy of films that feature Malcolm McDowell, and I've wanted to see this, so this is definitely in my cart. And I've heard good things about Broken Arrow. It's a Delmer Daves Western with James Stewart. I don't know much about it other than it's probably an interesting film. And let's look at over here now. I actually imported the UK edition of the Buster Keaton short film set from Eureka Masters of Cinema, and pretty much these have the exact same transfers, same shorts and everything. The main difference is Eureka opted to enclose a quite quite thick perfect bound book on the films, and Kino, I think, just has a little booklet or something like that. So if you're not that concerned, and especially for the price, for $24 to have this has all the films that Buster Keaton made with Fatty Arbuckle, as well as his own solo films. I've also been interested in these American Film Theater editions. I did get, I think, one that was a Lindsay Anderson film. That looked pretty interesting. So this is Butley, and it was directed by Harold Pinter, and it wasn't from one of his plays, actually. So I'm kind of interested in this. There's also Cabin Boy, which I bet is going to be one of the most popular titles from this sale. And the this is a fun edition. It's a really nice remaster. It's packed with extras, new commentary. They knew that people were wanting this on Blu-ray. And this is actually one of the Disney licenses they got. And what's interesting about the stuff licensed from Disney is that there's no indication on the cover artwork or the discs or anything that these are from Disney. They just say copyright Touchstone or stuff like that, which is kind of funny. But let's see what else we got. I have been looking at, you do have quite a bit of films. There's Captive City by Robert Wise. There's a double feature of Alec Guinness. That looks interesting. Some Basil Dearden films. One thing I might have in my cart is this Carol Lombard collection. I find the movies I've seen her in, especially Nothing Sacred and My Man Godfrey. And To Be or Not to Be. She's just wonderful in all of those. So I wouldn't mind seeing some of her early films. Although from looking at Letterboxd, these three films don't look like they're among her best, but uh, hey, early pre-code Paramount, I'll take it. And these three Cary Grant films also look interesting. Likewise, these are early 30s, and I think they're all pre-code as well. So always up for some pre-code. And let's see, and City on Fire. That was actually I'm thinking of something else. What else do we have here? I've heard Color of Night is a pretty awful movie, but uh, this has both cuts for those who are interested. Everything I've read about this doesn't sound like it's that good of a film, but my curiosity may get the better of me. And there is Sam Peckinpah's Convoy, which I remember that being pretty ridiculous, but hey, any Peckinpah is probably worth a look. There's Richard Lester's Cuba, which I don't know anything about other than I'm trying to see all of his films. I think I'm only a few films away from seeing all of them. So that's one I haven't seen on sale before. And of course, we have the Crimson Cult with Boris Karloff and Christopher Lee. That looks interesting. Joseph Losey's The Criminal. Let's see who made The Curse of the Undead. DC Cab, the Mr. T movie directed by Joel Schumacher. Otto Preminger's Daisy Kenyon. And let's see what we got here. Dead of Night is a amazing horror film from all studios that would make a horror film. This is from Ealing Studios, so the same company that was known for all these comedies, these British comedies in the 40s and 50s, made a creepy horror anthology film. And I think the highlights are the nightmarish kind of bookends to the film, but also there's a section of the film with a ventriloquist and his dummy with, I think, Michael Redgrave, that is easily one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. I think Deadline USA, that has Humphrey Bogart, directed by Richard Brooks. And this is an interesting film. It was actually the film that inspired, I think, Meet Joe Black, directed by Mitchell Leeson. And I've seen some other films by him that are really interesting, but this has Frederick March, and I thought it was an interesting film. It's not a great one, but it's still interesting. And, let's see what else we got. I got some Frank Bor Borzaghi. I'm probably butchering that. Frank Perry's Diary of a Mad Housewife. Let's see what we got here. Oh, here we go. And this is a great one. Les Dulos by Jean-Pierre Melville. This is a great film. It is beautiful 4K restoration, packed with extras, really worth seeing. There's also two Doctor Who movies that I think were from full restorations as well. The Eagle and the Hawk is a film that I just saw. If you look at the cast, Frederick March, Cary Grant, Carol Lombard, and Jack Oakey, but it's a World War One film, and I'm thinking it's probably made on the tail of Hell's Angels and All Quiet on the Western Front, but it's explicitly an anti-war film that it goes places I wasn't expecting. So it is a pre-code film, but it goes places I wasn't quite expecting. It's a bit of a dark anti-war film, which is good at least. There's another Frank Borzaghi. There's Farewell to Arms, which I've wanted to see that. It looks like an interesting film. And they also have the remake from the 50s that I doubt is good. Uh, F.W. Murnau's Faust, which that is a great silent film. I don't know how this compares to the UK Eureka Masters of Cinema edition, which is the version I have. Basically, I opted for the Fritz Lang silence from Kino, but the Murnau's from Masters of Cinema. So that's probably worth getting if you can't play Region B discs. Filmworker is a really interesting documentary about Stanley Kubrick's assistant, Leon Vitali, who basically appeared in Barry Lyndon in a supporting part, but was his assistant on a subsequent, I think, all the way up to Kubrick's death. And it's really interesting, insightful, a little bit terrifying in places. Really, uh, it kind of goes in some dark areas about Kubrick, especially if you're a fan of him. Might look at might look at his films a little bit differently. There's Five Graves to Cairo, which is a terrific Billy Billy Wilder, I guess, adventure thriller noir. I think this might have been his second film that he directed in the U.S. I'm not sure, but it has Eric von Stroheim and terrific film. We're seeing. They also have Sam Fuller's Fixed Bayonets, which is another terrific film, which I think it is a World War II film, or I forget if it's World War II or Korea, but it's not exactly doesn't exactly look at war in the most positive light, and I think it was made during the Korean War. So very interesting film. Thought it was terrific. Let's see. Um, there is Jean-Pierre Melville's last film, Un Flic. It's not as great as a lot of his earlier films, but it does have some good sequences. It does have one of the most ridiculous train heist scenes I've ever seen. The let's just say if you're familiar with the movie Danger Death Ray, this might actually bring up some memories of that. Foolish Wives is actually a silent that I probably would pass on. There's actually a new 4K restoration, and this is from an older restoration in the 70s, just newly transferred. Um, but if that's not that big of a, if you don't mind, if you don't really want to wait, this is still worth seeing. But there is a better restoration in the pipeline, and I think there might even be some other von Stroheim films in the works. You also have another Billy Wilder, A Foreign Affair. I just got this in the last big sale. I hadn't had a chance to watch it yet, but Billy Wilder 40s films are generally worth it. What else do we have here? Garden of Allah is a really interesting film. It's one of the earliest three-strip Technicolor features from 1936. In fact, it might have been the second or third ever made in the U.S. And it's interesting. It's not the greatest film, but it does have some pretty cinematography. Marlene Dietrich, Charles Boyer. Don't expect a masterpiece, but it's still a fun movie. I remember seeing The Good Son as a kid, and I bet it's terrible now, but I know that's probably one that a lot of people have memories of. And Sonny and Cher, Good Times, that is actually the first feature film by William Friedkin, I think, and or I think non-documentary. I think I'm kind of interested in seeing it. I'm not sure if I really want to see a Sonny and Cher movie, even if it's by Friedkin. But and another one that I'm kind of looking at is Grace Quigley. This is says Katharine Hepburn and Nick Nolte, directed by Anthony Harvey. So that's enough to get me interested. Anthony Harvey also directed The Lion in Winter and They Might Be Giants. Both of them are from Kino. I don't think they're part of the sale though. Let's keep going. Now, this is one film that I've really appreciated more, and it's Hannibal. This is actually their first and one of only two UHDs that are currently out. There are some more coming out in April and then later in the year, but this is an extremely fun film. The 4K remaster looks amazing, great sound mix, all the extras from the previous editions. This is a fun movie. If you don't mind a little bit of gore, a little bit, I would say maybe it's a little bit campy. I don't know, but it's definitely worth seeing, especially with it being 4K. Let's see. I'm kind of curious about Heartbeeps. It's the let's see, Andy Kaufman as a robot. I'm curious about that. Hellbent is another one of the Universal 4K restoration of a silent film. It's a John Ford silent, so I I, I thought it was okay. I did think Straight Shooting, which was the other John Ford Western from the teens that Universal restored and Kino released. There's The Hitchhiker, which is a thriller slash film noir by Ida Lupino, and I thought this was a terrific thriller. It's really tense. It's creepy. Just really, really amazing for something made in the 50s. Let's see here. Let's keep trudging along. Um, so I am interested in seeing The Iceman Cometh. It is John Frankenheimer, so that gets me interested. Plus, what is it? Lee Marvin, Frederick March, Robert Ryan, Jeff Bridges, based on the Eugene O'Neill play. And this is apparently a two-disc edition that has both a 4-hour director's cut and the 3-hour theatrical cut. So, hey, everything points to this at least being interesting. And I thought this is a good film. This is actually something that Criterion released on DVD, but the Blu-ray is being handled by Kino, Indiscretion of an American Wife. And it's one version of the film is the original Italian cut that Vittorio De Sica created, and it was considerably re-engineered by David O. Selznick for American theatrical release. This actually has both cuts. The American cut is from a 4K restoration and looks great. The Italian cut doesn't look quite as good, but it is a better film overall. And it's kind of interesting to be able to see the two side by side. Oh, what else we got? Kind of interested in this version of Joan of Arc with Ingrid Bergman, directed by Victor Fleming. This is in 3-strip Technicolor. Looks interesting. The kid that stays in the picture is in my definitely in my cart. This is a documentary based on the memoir by Robert Evans, so that certainly looks interesting to me. Um, Kind Hearts and Coronets is an essential Ealing comedy. In fact, this was on Criterion on DVD, but now the Blu-ray and the DVD are through Kino. It is an extremely funny film. Tour de force performances by Alec Guinness. Dennis Price is also hilarious in this. Really worth seeing. And The Kiss Before the Mirror is a James Whale. I think it's a thriller. This is definitely one I'm getting. I'm really interested in seeing more James Whale besides his Universal horror stuff. And this is also a terrific film, The Knack and How to Get It by Richard Lester. And I really wish this was a better Blu-ray. The transfer leaves a little bit to be desired. There's not really any extras, but the film overall is definitely worth it. And I think it won the Palme d'Or of that year. So, and this is probably one of the most prized releases out of everything with Kino is Martin Scorsese's Kundun. And this is a film that has pretty much got neglected over the years by Disney. This is a really nice transfer. It's not a full 4K restoration, but still a nice transfer. It actually has a whole second disc just for the extras. It's that packed. Really worth getting. I would say if you had to pick one that's an absolute essential, this is one. And there's also Frank and Eleanor Perry's Ladybug. Ladybug, I've heard some good things about that. The Landlord is a really interesting film. It's Hal Ashby's first feature film as director, and it's pretty amazing. Yeah, it has some really, really interesting stuff in it. Oh, let's see. There is also, this is actually one of the more rare films that they got. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but it's James Clavel's The Last Valley. This is a film that was shot in 65 millimeter and has pretty much been unavailable in any decent form over the years. Obviously, Kino wasn't able to go back to the wide format materials, but they did make a decent transfer off of some good 35 millimeter materials, which is at least an upgrade. I think the only DVD it got was through MGM years ago. That was non-anamorphic, pretty lousy transfer. So probably the best that we're going to see for that. There's also the great Last Year at Marienbad. This was released on Blu-ray by Criterion, but this actually uses a newer 4K restoration that is just outstanding, packed with extras. In fact, I think this actually is one of the few times I've seen a release where it's actually an improvement over Criterion in every way. So very, very worth seeing. Let's see what else we also have. Let's Kill Uncle, directed by William Castle. Oh, and by the way, last year Marion Bad was directed by Alain Rene, I think. I think that's how you say his name. Let's Kill Uncle is I think a comedy. Yeah, it's a comedy. William Castle. That's one I just got a copy of. I've been meaning to watch, but I'm always up for any William Castle. There's Hitchcock's Lifeboat, which is a really good film. This has some good extras, although the UK edition has a little bit of an edge because it includes his two propaganda films made for France during I think 1944 or 45. But this does use the same transfer. It does have quite a bit of extras, so very good. And I think this is the only film Hitchcock made for 20th Century Fox. This is actually one of the greatest films I think I'm sorry, in Kino's library. It's The Lion in Winter. This is from a 4K restoration that it looks good. I don't know if there were elements issues or something, but it still looks really good. It's a big improvement over past editions. But this is an essential movie. One of the greatest films I've ever seen. Peter O'Toole, Katharine Hepburn, also has early performances with Anthony Hopkins and Timothy Dalton from a James Goldman script. John Barry's score, directed by Anthony Harvey. And I think it was also shot by, I forgot who shot it, but this is a absolutely great film. Let's see. There is also George Miller's Lorenzo's Oil, which I've wanted to see. 'Cause I really only know Miller from his the Mad Max movies, so I'm interested in seeing something that's a little bit more based in reality, or I guess. Let's see. And there's Henry Hathaway's Lives of the Bengal Lancer. I've heard that's interesting. I've heard a lot of people talk about Lord Love a Duck. Kind of curious about that. There's David Lynch's Lost Highway, which this got a little bit of a controversy when it came out because it didn't use an approved transfer by Lynch, but from what I've heard, it's a perfectly fine master, no extras, but for $10, not too bad until the inevitable Criterion edition, probably. There is also Love Me Tonight, which is a Ruben Mamoulian musical comedy with Maurice Chevalier and Jeanette MacDonald. I don't I didn't really care for it as much as Ernst Lubitsch's The Love Parade or The Smiling Lieutenant. Still a charming comedy. It's pre-code, although the surviving version of the film is missing, I think, one or two scenes. And there's actually extras on the disc that go into the detail on the missing footage, but uh, so much for that. There's also, what do we got here? The Man Between by Carol Reed. That has James Mason, Claire Bloom, and it kind of feels sort of like a spiritual successor to The Third Man. I thought it was an interesting film. And what else we got? I know nothing about this other than I'm always up for more film noir with Orson Welles, even if he's not directing. And if you have a 3D setup, The Mask is we're seeing. This is a Canadian horror movie that it's mostly black and white flat, but it does have these 3D stereophonic segments throughout the film. And I think this actually has the option of where you can watch it in anaglyph or in polarized 3D, depending on what your setup is. And there's also The Master, which people probably recognize this from Mystery Science Theater as Master Ninja, but this is the original show, original version, not edited into movie form. They also have The Martian Chronicles, and let's see here. What else? Oh, Spike Lee's Mo Better Blues. Again, this is one I've been meaning to watch. I've heard some good things. I'm always up for a movie. Uh, I think this might be the first movie that Lee made after Do the Right Thing, I think. So I'm definitely up for seeing that. What else do we have? I actually remember liking My Boyfriend's Back when I was in, I think, high school, I think I remember seeing it on TV. I remember it being kind of a surreal, kind of weird horror movie, and also kind of interesting. It was directed by Bob Balaban, so I don't know. That might actually be worth a view. Yeah, let's see. And I'm probably gonna get a lot of crap from people for skipping over stuff. There is the Knight Strangler. I know that's a pretty popular one. I don't really know much about it. Not as a Stranger looks interesting, directed by Stanley Kramer. But look at the cast: Olivia de Havilland, Robert Mitchum, Frank Sinatra. So that's enough to get me interested. There's also the William Wellman comedy Nothing is Sacred. This pretty much has a high pedigree. William Wellman as director, Ben Hecht as screenwriter, stars Carol Lombard and Frederick March. A lot of fun. And I was probably going to get the oblong box just because, hey, it's Vincent Price and Christopher Lee an adaptation of a Edgar Allan Poe story. um, there's also the Complete Outer Limits in. I'm probably gonna get that. That's a great show. It only lasted for 2 seasons. The Outlaw, everything I've heard about it is that it's a pretty awful movie, but probably it's pretty significant at least. Alfred Hitchcock's The Paradine Case, which is the only one of the Selznick collaborations. It's not with Criterion for some reason. There's a Parasite 3D, which I wouldn't mind seeing. All the 3D Film Archive releases have been amazing. There's some Pink Panther. Um, Phantom of the Opera, this is actually, I think the UK British Film Institute edition is a little bit better, but this does have some unique features that make it worthwhile. Um, I don't think it's a great silent film, but it is one of the most iconic. Andre de Toff's Pitfall, which is a film noir. That's from a UCLA restoration, I think. Port of Shadows, that's Marcel Carnet. This used to be on Criterion. This is also from a 4K restoration. I thought it was a good film. And Premature Burial by Roger Corman, based on a Poe story with, and this stars Ray Milland. Wouldn't mind seeing that. Let's see. I'm not even going to be able to pronounce this, but it's a Clouseau thriller, and I thought it was an interesting film. It does have one scene that's never would have seen it in a film in the U.S. at the time. We'll see here. Razia sur la Schnuff. I probably didn't pronounce it right. That's a pretty good thriller. Plus, it has Jean Gabon and Lino Ventura. Um, kind of, um, kind of makes one think of films like Touche, Paso Grisby, or what is it, Army of Shadows. But Lino Ventura has kind of become one of my favorite French actors of that time. And oh, this is one underrated release is the Reginald Denny collection. This has three comedies made for Universal, silent comedies, and they've been fully restored. They're absolutely charming. They're funny, really worth seeing. I think this is probably one of the most underrated releases of 2020 from Kino. Definitely would recommend this. I know it's a little bit more expensive, but it does have three feature films. All of them have commentaries, new restorations, nice scores, worth seeing. And I wanted to see Rhinoceros because I'm up for any further collaboration with Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder, of course. And let's see what we got here. And I would actually hold off on the Sergio Leone set because the 4K edition of The Good, the Bad, the Ugly is just about to come out in April, and it's a brand new master. It's finally the full theatrical cut and 4K and stuff. So this is a pretty good deal, but it's up to you. The disc of Fistful of Dynamite is not the newer transfer that's in the UK edition. Once Upon a Time in the West is just the Paramount disc that's already been released, but the $3 films are from the MGM 4K masters. I know there's been some controversy over a Fistful of Diamonds, but um, for a few dollars more and The Good, the Bad, the Ugly are fairly solid with just a few caveats. Oh, what else we got? We got Cecil B. DeMille's Sign of the Cross, William Wyler's The Shakedown. Those are, and I wanted to see since you went away. I've heard that's a terrific kind of a wartime film. Pretty much had the entire cast that was under contract with David O. Selznick at the time. I would hold off on Son of the Sheik because the UK Masters of Cinema edition uses a vastly superior transfer and score. Song of Norway is a bizarre, odd little movie, but this is literally the only digital releases that has ever existed. Before there was a pan and scan VHS. This is a rarity that's at least worth seeing for something very odd. It's at least worth joking over. Ruben Mamoulian's The Song of Songs. I thought this was an interesting film. Has Marlene Dietrich. The Sound Barrier is a David Lean film. I thought this was terrific. Has Ralph Richardson, uh, and I would definitely recommend seeing this. This is a very important film, I think, in David Lean's filmography. And Spiral Staircase is a great Robert Sedmak noir. That's worth seeing. I think this is the best U.S. edition of. Oh no, there's the Cohen edition as well, but this is probably worth seeing. I mean, for $10, pretty good version of Steamboat Bill Jr. in college. Plus, it's Buster Keaton. So, let's see what we have left on this. Sweet Charity is a Bob Fosse film. Absolutely amazing film. 100% recommend. It's from Universal's 4K restoration. There is an Indicator edition that I think has more extras, but this is worth seeing if you don't want to import it. And this is Woody Allen's first feature film, or real first feature film. I thought this was really funny. It's kind of a mockumentary. I thought it was funny. Take the money and run. There's also The Thomas Crown Affair by Norma Jewison, starring Steve McQueen and Faye Dunaway. This is from a 4K remaster. There's also The Train, which is a Twilight Time rescue. John Frankenheimer with Burt Lancaster. I've been wanting to see that. I've heard a lot of people talk about the trilogy of terror movies. Oh, one by Dan Curtis. It sounds interesting. Twice Told Tales with Vincent Price, Nathaniel Hawthorne stories. Let's see what we got here. The Vikings is a fun film by Richard Fleischer. Has Kirk Douglas and Tony Curtis, Ernest Borgnine, Janet Leigh. So very worth seeing. What else we got? White Zombie, which I don't know if that's the best edition. I think it is. There's also another 3D film, Wings of the Hawk, which is a Bud Bodicher Western in 3D, which is enough to get me interested. And there's also X the Man with the X-Ray Eyes. Roger Corman directed it. Stars Ray Milland. I've wanted to see that for a while. And there's also the South Korean horror movie Yongari Monster from the Deep, which I think this only has the U.S. cut, but from what I've read, only the U.S. cut exists anyways. So, and there's also a While Supplies Last sale going on, but I think all the good stuff's already been taken out. So, thanks for putting up with me droning on about these movies, but that's just a little bit of stuff worth seeking out. Until next time.